So when it comes to periods and commas and inside and outside of quotation marks, there are some very basic rules. Periods and commas go inside the quotation marks unless there is a citation in parentheses. So for example, if I were writing a quote in my paper, I would open quote with the standard double quotes in America, and then write my quote, I think, therefore, I am. And I would put a period because that's the end of my sentence and close my quotation marks. Now, that's how it works if there's not a citation. If there is a citation, this period gets pushed after the citation. So it would look like this. I think, therefore, I am. Close my quotation marks now. Open my parentheses, put my author's name and the page number of the book, close parentheses, and now my period belongs there. I do not put a period inside. Some of you selected period inside and outside. That is not the case. Open your regular quotes, your regular doubles. John was in pain. That's my quote. But the sentence is going to continue on. And it's going to be a compound sentence, like we learned earlier in the year with the coordinating conjunction. John was in pain, comma, close quotes, but he continued running the race. Period. So here, the comma goes inside the quotes because there is no citation. If there is a citation, then where that comma goes is moved over. So let's rewrite this sentence with a citation. John was in pain, close quotes because I have a citation, the author's last name, the page number, close parentheses, and then I put my comma. And then I continue on with the sentence. But he continued. Running the race. So, same sentence, but where that comma goes depends upon whether there's a citation or not. Now we want to look at how we handle exclamation marks and question marks. Remember, these operate differently. They are stronger forms of punctuation than the period and the comma. So, in the case of this quote, if I were putting in my paper, run, Forrest. Run. This is an imperative sentence. It's a declamation. It's going to end with a exclamation mark and close quotes. All right. If I have a citation, this is stronger punctuation. It still stays put. And so in this case, it would look like this with a citation. Run, Forrest. Run. Still exclamation mark, close quotes, but then I would have the author's name and the page. And then I would still put a period. So, in the case of question marks and exclamation marks, they still stay put. And then you put your period as well. The next thing I want to talk about is when you have an attributive verb. Many students got the question wrong when I ask what an attributive verb is. Many students answered that it modifies a noun. A verb is an action or a state of existence. A being verb or an action it's not an adjective, which is what many of you picked the definition of. Verb, you're looking for either is, am, was, which are being verbs, state of existence verbs, or you're looking for action. Attributive, if you'll remember, attributive means to give attribute or to give credit. I also called attributive verbs verbs of communication, because most of the time, other than thought, they're verbs of communication, such as said, says, sang, whined. All of these types of words, there's hundreds of them. Whimpered. And then you're following a quote. Afterwards, what they said, what they whimpered, what they sang, what they yelled, what they typed, what they wrote. These are all communication verbs. Okay? And even our newer one, what they texted, which is one of our newer verbs that many English teachers don't like. When you have an attributive verb in a sentence before the quote, leading into the quote, you have to have a comma. So, if we say, Jeff sang, comma, why did you leave me alone? Question mark, close quotes. Anytime you have a communication verb, I could change this to said, I could change this to whine, whimpered, wrote, texted. Doesn't matter. There has to be a comma if you have an attributive verb, attributing that Jeff is the one that spoke, sang, typed, text, whatever these words, or verb of communication. So, Jeff sang, why did you leave me here all alone? Make sure you understand what an attributive verb is. Okay, so I want to talk about when we use double quotes and when we use single quotes. And the reality is you always start with double quotes in the American system. So anytime that you are going to pull material from a book, for example, this is from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, you are always, before you start anything else with that quote, going to put double quotation marks. And then as you go, every place that the text has quotation marks, you're going to put a single. So in this case, we have your double quotes and then a single. No extra spaces, they're equidistant. and you're going to start writing your quote. Hoo-wee! Double quote, you're turning that into single. There's also a comma there. He said, comma. This is a double quote, or a quotation mark in the book, so you make a single, you replace the author's double with a single. Look what we got here. Now, I'm ending my quote here, so I'm going to, in this case, I'm pulling from a book, so I'm going to have a citation. So I'm going to put single quote to replace the double in the book, and then put my doubles, and then I'm going to put the citation, and the citation out of a book is going to be the author's last name, Kessie, and then the page number, 23, and then your period. Because of course we have a citation, so period gets pushed out to the end, even though in the book the period's inside. If this part, he said, which is an action, not spoken words or thought words, if this was not here, then you don't put double quotes. I might say McMurphy, who is the character speaking here, McMurphy says, comma, remember attributive verbs always have a comma after them when they're introducing a quote, look what we got here. Again, I'm pulling from the text, so I don't put a period here. I do my closing quotes, my closing quotation marks, and my parenthetical citation, author's last name and page number, close quotes, period. So why didn't I use the 3 quotation marks here? Because it's only dialogue that I'm borrowing from the text. It's only dialogue. There's no action. When I wrote it the first time, I've got dialogue, action, him speaking, and then more dialogue. In this case, I've just taken the dialogue, so I don't need the 3 because I don't need to show where action and words begin and end. Now let's continue on with this particular passage because I want to use this same passage to show how we use ellipses. When you are writing in your writing for essays and that sort of thing, you do not use ellipses for anything but when you are removing information from a quote. I know when you read sometimes writers will put ellipses to show that a character is stopping and thinking and there's a pause in their speech, but that's not what you're writing. You're not writing dialogue for a story. You're writing for research papers, things like that. And the only thing I want you using ellipses for is when you're removing something out of the middle of the text. Remember, I don't want you using ellipses after the opening quotation marks or right before the ending quotation marks. It's understood that that the text may continue after or precede before what you're borrowing. This ends up making your reader focus more on your punctuation than the point you're trying to get across. So don't do that. Avoid that. It is not necessarily wrong, but it is not great style. So let's look at how you do use ellipses, or how I want you using ellipses. Okay, so let's take this quote here. Now, I'm going to start with my own sentence stem, my own words. Again, McMurphy says, comma, because this is an attributive verb, one of those verbs of communication. And I don't want he said there. I want to cut that out of the text and bring whoey and look what we got here together. I can't just do that. I need ellipses for that. So he says, my regular double quotes, because I'm only going to use dialogue. Hoo-wee. Now, I'm cutting this out, so I need my ellipses. Ellipses are not just dot, dot, dot. They are space, dot, space, dot, space, dot. Look what we got here. Now, again, this is from a book. I'm going to have a citation, so I don't put the period here because there is a citation. Look what we got here. Okay, see, and that's page 23, and period. So let's use this same sentence to show what we use brackets for. Remember, brackets, and in English we call these brackets. I know in math they talk about hard brackets and soft brackets. These are brackets. What they call soft brackets are parentheses. I'm not sure when that began being a thing, but in English, parentheses and brackets. There is no such thing as a hard bracket or soft bracket in English. So, we're going to talk about brackets. Brackets are used to either add text for clarity or change words if you need to change a word for clarity. Or maybe change punctuation, not punctuation, capitalization in some instances. So let's use this same sentence here. Now, I'm going to have the mix of dialogue and action. I'm not just going to have dialogue or action. I'm going to use both. I'm going to use this whole sentence. That means that I need to do my open quotes like we talked about earlier, and then take their quotation mark and make it a single. Whoo-wee! There I go squeaking again. And then have my comma. This double becomes a single because I convert theirs. Now, maybe in the previous sentence or two I haven't introduced who he is. This is McMurphy. But maybe in my essay I haven't introduced that. So I need to change the pronoun he to its antecedent, meaning the word that that pronoun stands for, which in this case is McMurphy. So I'm taking the he out, I'm putting McMurphy in brackets. McMurphy said, comma, and of course we got that mix of dialogue. McMurphy is speaking, that's action. And then what he says is dialogue. So we got that single quote to replace that double. Look what we got here. Period. Close quotes. Unless I were putting a citation, and I should be. And if I were putting the citation, I'm sorry, this should be closed triple quotes. Look what we got here, close quote, and then my double. And then really we should have a citation, so it should look more like this at the end of the sentence. The author's name in parentheses and the page number and the period. So here I've taken this sentence, he said, and I've defined who he is. So I've added some clarity. That's what brackets are most commonly going to be used for. In some cases, you want to change the tense, or you need to change the tense. So instead of changing this, you might not need to change that, but you might need to change this to present tense. So what you would do in that case is your brackets and make it present tense. and still have your comma because that's actually an attributive verb and it has its comma. See, attributive verb, comma, quote. And that makes it present tense. What you cannot do with brackets is change the intended meaning of the quote. You have to stay true to what the original quote meant. Okay, so the last thing I want to discuss is integrating, framing your quote, not just dropping full sentence quotes in, but actually working them in so that you flow into the words of the quote and out of the words of the quote back into your own words very smoothly. So continuing on with this novel, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, we have a nurse who is drugging the patients in the ward because they were acting up or they were acting in a way she did not like and showing some independence. So instead of just saying, instead of just quoting whole patches of text, what I want to do is create a situation where I'm explaining what's happened and then flowing into the quote. So I'll say, Nurse Ratched, that is her name in the novel, is angry with the patients rebelling. Comma, and that is, now I'm going to take this sentence, is open quotes, there isn't dialogue and there's no quotation marks, there isn't dialogue and action, it's just action. So since there are no quotation marks, I just need my normal doubles. That is why she's fogging. And in this case, I might decide to add a clarifying word in a bracket, drugging the ward for the meeting. Now, again, I'm taking from the novel, so I need to go ahead and close my quotation marks, no period. This period here is going to get pushed out by the citation that is part of the sentence. Okay, see, and this comes from page 133, close quotation, or close parentheses, and now my period. So I've done a couple things here. If I didn't have the quotation marks here, this would flow quite smoothly, and you would not know that some of these words are quoted from the book. Of course, you have to cite, but you wouldn't know that. Nurse Ratched is angry with the patients rebelling, and that is why she's fogging the ward for the meeting. It flows smoothly as if it's all written by one person, when in fact I'm taking the words of the author and sort of weaving in and out of the quote.